Hello, Cincinnati. Let's give Renee another hand. He did a good job, didn't he? I want to thank all the folks on the pre-program, and thank you, Democratic Party Chair Tim Burke. Thank you, Denise Driehaus, and good luck to you in this election. And thank you, Alicia Reese, who has led Ohio in believing that more people should vote, not fewer. Thank you. You ought to give this guy a hand. You know, his side has had a very bad week, so let's try to make him feel better. Let's make him feel better. Look, what you are seeing, he said, thank you. Wait. What you are seeing is basically a microcosm of what this campaign's all about. You got one person who's a master at rubbing salt in people's wounds, doesn't pay taxes, doesn't even contribute to his own family charity, doesn't pay his contractors, takes the life savings of people that go to Trump you and don't get anything except Trump. But he's really good at making people mad. So the fundamental decision you have to make in the whole election is, how do you feel about America and where we're going? And if you think everything's going to hell in a handbasket, then maybe you want to have somebody who's great at dividing us, distracting us, and demonizing those who are different. But if you think that our best days are still ahead, if you think we're fortunate because with all the problems we've got, we have too much income stagnation, too much income inequality, we have too much tension within many of our communities, we have unaddressed mental health and drug addiction needs, all of our challenges, we're still outperforming every other big economy on earth. We still have the youngest, most diverse workforce in the world of any big country. We still have the most productive workforce in manufacturing in the world, and we can get a lot of those jobs back. Just depends on what you think. Give him a hand. I'm telling you, don't treat them. Hey, wait. If you want to know what this is about, turn on the TV when you get home tonight and look at what President Obama said on television about it. So, anyway, it depends on what you think. Really, if you believe that, you should not vote for Hillary. And if you believe that, America's best days are behind us. I believe America's days are ahead of us. We just had the 79th month in a row where we had more jobs than the previous month. Even when I was president, I gave you 3 balanced budgets, 3 surpluses, and we all rose together for the first time in 50 years. Even then, we didn't have 79 months of job growth. I'm telling you, we are just this close to taking off. And it all depends on our attitude. Are we thinking about the future or looking back? Do we want to go back to trickle-down economics? Well, that's one of the issues in the campaign. For all that railing about the establishment, the truth is, Hillary wants to go forward to invest and grow this economy from the middle out and the bottom up. Her opponent wants to go backwards and cut taxes on millionaires, billionaires, and big corporations, whether they move jobs or keep them here. And you just got to decide what you want. But you can't pretend there's not a choice here. It's clear. And it will affect your life. So I'm going to commit something that is really weird in this election. I'd like to talk about what this election means to you and your future and how we're all going to live. Here's what I think. You might win an election distracting people, dividing the country, and demonizing your opponents. But after you get there, if that's what you do, you won't do anything good for anybody, and we won't be better off. On the other hand, if you decide to reject that and to concentrate on what we can do good instead of distracting people, to cooperate instead of dividing, and to create opportunities for everybody to rise together because we are stronger together, America will be a whole lot better off. This is a very straightforward choice. There's only one person you can vote for who's got a plan to create more than 10 million jobs by modernizing our infrastructure. Not just roads and bridges and ports and airports, but you see me stop and shake hands with all the construction workers over there? Look at that old building. One of the things my foundation did at no cost to the taxpayers was to convince the public employee unions to put $16 billion aside from their pension funds for a good rate of return to invest in infrastructure, putting people to work in private sector construction unions. We've allocated $12.5 billion of that. We already got 100,000 jobs out of it. No government action. I just got back from 2 days in Iowa. The Secretary of Agriculture was governor of Iowa. He's the most underrated person in the president's cabinet because he never asks for any credit for himself. He just shows up for work and gets something good done. But he took all these programs that have been adopted over the years, a little bit of money here, a little bit of there, put it all together. And the Agriculture Department has created 250,000 jobs in small towns and rural areas in America to give people there a chance to be part of our shared future. I'm telling you something. You know, when you reach a certain age, all you care about is whether people are better off, whether kids have a brighter future, and whether we're coming together instead of tearing each other apart. The rest of this is all background music. I don't care what anybody tells you. And we just got to decide what it is we're about, what kind of people we are, and whether we really believe we're stronger together, and whether we really believe it matters. It does matter. I have now spent half my life trying to help somebody find a job, start a business, make a farm work, get health care and education for their kids, resolve problems in the community so we can all go forward together. And I know wherever people are working together, good things are happening. In America and all over the world. Wherever they spend all their time on the kind of acid pouring we've been put through, good things are not happening. I don't think you should feel surprised, but you ought to feel bad for those people. Because if you pour acid down people's throat solidly every single day for a year and a half, some of it's going to come back out. You can't deaden the spirit and poison the mind, numb the heart without having some consequences. But it won't be good. Nobody's going to be doing anything for anybody else. So first, we need a modern infrastructure program. And it's not just the stuff you think, not just roads and bridges and ports and airports and seaports. It's things like that building. And it's things like recognizing that Flint, Michigan is not the only place in this country where children have elevated lead levels in their blood for drinking water out of rusty pipes. And you just think about it. If we ripped up all those rusty pipes, we could give all of our kids a healthy future and create an enormous number of good, high-paying jobs doing that work. I'll give you another example. Every single day in America, somewhere between 3 and 5 million school children are given a homework assignment that requires them to get on the internet, and they can't do it. Why? Because here we are in 2016, a device that was born in America, the internet, is not available to people because they don't have broadband coverage where they live. If you did that, you could create millions of opportunities for business growth in places that have been left out and left behind, and all those kids could do their homework, and they'd have a better chance in the race of life in the future. I'll give you another example that directly relates to Ohio's capacity over the long run to generate new manufacturing jobs. I just spent 2 days on a bus in Iowa, and I was traveling around, and some of you probably know this, but Iowa has the biggest baseload capacity of its electricity and wind of any state in America. And guess what? Did they pay a penalty for leading the fight against the worst consequences of the climate changing? No. They also have the lowest electric rates in America, because once you build those things, the power is free. And that's a part of our future too. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, we have to get back into small business again. Hillary supports the Dodd-Frank law, which the president signed, which keeps Wall Street from ever wrecking Main Street again. Another big choice. Behind all the screams, her opponent has promised to repeal it, which is just what they want. You tell me who the establishment candidate is. She wants to keep it, he wants to repeal it. However, she does want to make more lending available to small businesses and make sure that banks don't have to spend as much money processing a loan for $50,000 as they do one for $50 million. We got to get back in the small business again. It's 2/3 of our new job growth. And the third thing we got to do is to make sure that we're investing in all our communities. Tim Ryan. Paul Ryan's got his own problems. I feel bad for him. Poor man, he's got a load to lug around now. But Tim Ryan, your congressman, is the Democratic co-chair of the Bipartisan Manufacturing Caucus. Your Senator Sherrod Brown knows more about manufacturing and trade than probably anybody in the Senate. They have worked hard for Hillary because they know she's got a good program to bring manufacturing jobs back to America, and she got the right idea on trade. We're only 4% of the world's population. We got to sell something to somebody else. But she wants to make two big changes. One is realize that for other countries, the negotiations don't stop when the deals are signed. You got to enforce these deals. When I left office, they cut enforcement by 75%. Hillary wants to have a special trade prosecutor to bring an action every single day, if that's what it takes to make sure our people are treated fairly. She wants to take into account currency manipulation and other things that are never going to be in a trade deal, but can keep you from having fair access. And the third thing she wants to do is to make sure that we don't allow people to get the tax benefits of doing business in this country when they're ripping American workers and communities off. And I'll give you two examples. It just came out the other day that her opponent built a building with Chinese steel being sold through dummy corporations so he wouldn't have to fess up to where it came from, when there had already been a determination that the steel was illegal to be sold in America because it was being sold below the cost of production, even in China. The other one is what happened to Carrier Air Conditioning in Indiana, where they threw 2,100 people and their families under the bus. They were making, not air conditioning, but furnaces. That division was making, listen to this, $2.9 billion a year. The profit margins on each furnace were going up. It was booming. And it was just everything you'd want in a company. But the richest shareholders said, we want more money right now. It'll drive the stock market price up, and we want our money out in a year and a day. I want you to hear me. This is kind of complicated. This is a big part of our problem in America. So if the richest shareholders of a company say, we don't care about the workers, we don't care about the communities, we don't even care about the customers and what's good for the company over the long run, all we care about is, can we take all our money out in a year and a day? That is terrible news for the long-term health of the American economy. So Hillary says if somebody does what they did, and let me say, the union said, you're only going to save $65 million. We'll save the money for you. We'll reorganize the work schedules. We can save you exactly the same money. They said, no, we want to break the unions so we can loot this company and take the money away. The finance tail was wagging the economic dog, and whenever that happens, only the tail's going to be happy. And this is a huge national problem. So Hillary says, if a company does that, if they leave us when they're making money, just to force all the profits into 1 year, with no concern for what it does to the business, the customers, the workers, or their communities, then they should lose every last red cent they ever got from the state, local, or national government. They should not be able to bring their products back into the American market duty-free. And they definitely shouldn't get a tax cut. But she said, I do want to cut taxes for American businesses who share their profits fairly with their workers, who retrain their workers so they can be more productive and more valuable, and who will invest their money in areas in America that have been left out and left behind, where there haven't been enough new jobs in the last 10 years. Those people should be rewarded with lower taxes. Now, like I said, I've been doing this a long time. I promise you that her way will work way better than just going back to trickle-down economics. And it will spread economic opportunity across this country so we can all grow together. Then you got to make sure everybody can participate. We have to redignify skills training in this country. A lot of people don't need four-year college degrees to get good jobs if they get proper training. She wants to fund that and reward it. We have to make college affordable for everybody. And the best thing, talk about an example of cooperation, the best thing that happened at the Democratic Convention was that she and Bernie Sanders, bless his heart, got together and they merged their college plans and came up with one that was better than either one of them had before. And here's how it works. This is a really big deal. Two people ran against each other, had a close race. They said, what we really care about is making college available to everybody. So they did the following things. One, free tuition for everybody at community colleges. Two, free tuition for everybody at public institutions of higher education up to $125,000 in family income. That's 85% of us. And debt-free graduation for people at private colleges with reasonable tuition and high graduation rates, and at all public colleges, so that everybody can get out all right. And then, something of more concern to a lot of people in this audience, what about the debt that's already been run up? The average college debt in America is about $30,000. That's the average. But people that have gone to law school or architecture school or medical school, some of them owe $100,000, $150,000, $200,000. Here's the plan. First, we have got to end the practice that college loans are the only loans in America you cannot refinance. That is wrong. I don't know how many people I've had this conversation with, but not so long ago, I bought a pair of jeans from a woman I've been doing business with for a long time, and I knew she had a son who just graduated from one of New York State colleges, and she was real proud of him. I said, how's your boy doing? She said, oh, he graduated with great grades, and I know he's going to get a good job. Well, does he have any debt? She said, oh, yeah, quite a bit. I said, what's the interest rate? 9%. And I said, do you have a mortgage still? She said, well, of course I do. I said, have you refinanced it? She said, absolutely. What's your interest rate? Under 4%. Now, let me just ask you something. America is supposed to be a country that stays in the future business. We're supposed to lead the world in creating the opportunities of tomorrow. We're supposed to be a place of opportunity for everybody who's willing to work hard and play by the rules. No matter where you come from, what your religion is, what your orientation is, doesn't matter. Everybody's supposed to be there. You've got to stay in the future business. How can you justify charging young people at the beginning of their life interest rates on college debt more than twice as high as what their parents are paying on home mortgages? So, if you just let everybody refinance at current rates, more than 20 million young millennials would save an average of more than $2,000, and those that owe more would save a whopping lot more than that. Then she proposes to let everybody turn their college debt into a mortgage-like instrument and never have to pay more than 10% of their after-tax income a month to pay it off, no matter how much they owe. And if they do any kind of public service work, if they do AmeriCorps, something like that, they could pay a lot of get it forgiven in a few years. If they do any kind of public service work, they don't have to pay anything after 10 years. Nobody has to pay anything after 20, and not a single month will you ever have to pay, no matter what you owe, more than 10% of your after-tax income. Now, in addition to that, think about that. That means everybody can get a credit rating. Then for young people who have college debt, who want to start a small business, if they otherwise qualify, she would suspend repayment of the college loans for 3 full years while you get the business up and going. I met a young man in Iowa a couple of days ago, in his early 20s, took $20,000 and started a business that basically is an app you can order to figure out how to do better on all professional tests. How to get into law school, architecture school, medical school, then how to pass the boards for nursing school, medical school, law school afterward. The average person is paying between $1,000 and $2,000 to get ready for these tests. They got young people from all these backgrounds. They put together flashcards that are just as good as anybody else did. They make it available over the internet for $30. And guess what? He started that business with $20,000. They have got 50 employees now. That is where most of America's new jobs have always come from. That's the future of this country. They deserve the right to be able to pay their college loans off and have access to capital and credit. So you just got to forgive me. I think that's a big part of what this election's about. We have got to grow this economy faster with more high-paying jobs, more people qualified for them, and more upward mobility. A lot of what is fueling the road rage on the other side of this campaign are too many people get up every day, they look in the mirror, and they think every one of my tomorrows is going to be like yesterday. So I want you to believe it can be better. I've spent my life doing this. I am telling you, we are so close. But you got to vote for the right kind of policies and the right kind of leader. Now, there are two things that could keep America from rising together again. One is political gridlock in Washington, fueled by the kind of animosity we see on the streets in this election. And the other is trouble abroad, both the turmoil that you all know about, but also very slow economic growth abroad. There's only one person you can vote for who both has really good ideas, a proven record of breaking gridlock. You know, as mean as those Republicans are, she doesn't take it personally. She knows it's just the way they do business. And she will never close the door. Everything she has accomplished as First Lady, as a senator from New York, as a Secretary of State, every single solitary thing, she was able to get Republicans to join Democrats in supporting her, and that's what you need a president to do. We've got to do that. And when she left office as Secretary of State, the approval of the United States on every continent, Africa, Asia, Latin America, Europe, on every continent, was 20 points higher than it was when she took office, because they believed she had their back too, and that she wanted a peaceful, inclusive future for the world. And she is literally the best change maker I've ever known. We just celebrated our 41st anniversary. And when I met her in law school, by the time we got out of law school, she had already gone to South Carolina to figure out how to get African-American teenagers, some as young as 13, out of adult jail so their lives would not be lost. I mean, literally, their whole future wiped away. She had already gone to South Texas to register Mexican-Americans who for generations had been systematically shut out of the political system. She started the first legal aid clinic we ever had in the mountains of northwest Arkansas for people in the demographic group I grew up in. I was the first person in my family ever to go to college. But my kinfolks were hardworking, honorable people, and they couldn't afford a lawyer to save their lives. They deserve that. And before you know it, she also went to Alabama and posed as a racist mom trying to get her kid in an all-white school to prove that these so-called academies were dishonestly claiming and illegally claiming federal tax credits for what they said was a good private school, which was nothing more than a segregated public school in another form. And they lost the tax credits. She has always been able to get something done that needed doing. And she oversaw our efforts to raise school standards in Arkansas, and when she made the presentation, the grizzled old cattle farmer who was head of our state education committee said, "I think we elected the wrong one." When I ran for president, we had the highest performing schools in our region. And a man that had previously said we had the worst school system in the country said we had one of the two most improved. She just makes things better, in or out of office. That's what you want. And you want somebody, I will say this, her opponent in the second debate, maybe it was an error, but he stated one totally true fact. He said she will never quit. And she will never quit on America, and she will never quit on you. So, our candidates stand on Social Security. There's the question, is that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It is easy to guarantee the long-term financial stability of Social Security. 48% of America's seniors are kept out of poverty because of it. There's one final thing that's important to a lot of your families. If you think that the health care law should be repealed, she is not your candidate. She thinks it's a good thing that 25 million more Americans have health care. She thinks it's a good thing that 100% of us now, believe me, when you're young, it's hard to imagine this. When you're my age, not a week goes by that I don't have to say goodbye to somebody I've loved. It's part of the rhythm of life. We all accept it. There comes a time when you just have to be grateful for every day and the new opportunities of each new day, but no one knows. So it's done a world of good not allowing anybody to lose their insurance because of a pre-existing condition. But there are problems. The co-pays and deductibles are still going up too much. The prescription drugs are too expensive for everybody not covered by Medicare programs that can keep them cheaper. And the people having the toughest time are those that make just a little bit too much, either small businesses or working people, to get those subsidies. Why? Because they don't belong to big corporations. Their employers don't have a lot of bargaining power, and they're easy pickings for higher rates. There's only one person who said, let's don't get rid of what's good about that law. Let's fix the problems. Here's how we'll get the copays and deductibles down. Here's how we'll make the drugs more affordable. And we'll have a public option so that those people in small businesses and whose individual policies are just a little above the subsidy rates will get affordable health care. It's a big deal. Now look, folks. I know, I always get tickled at these debates, and they do these dial meter things, and the dial meters go off the charts if you land a zinger on somebody else. But this is your life. This is the kind of stuff that's going to shape the country you live in, the future you have, what young people have to look forward to. We're either going to grow together or not. You got a choice. Anger or answers. You got a choice. Resentment or empowerment. You got a choice. You got a choice. Conflict or cooperation. And you got a choice. Look around this crowd. You got a choice. Are you going to relate to people not just beyond our borders, but within our country through walls or bridges? Here's the copy of the Hamilton County Democratic ballot. It looks like the United Nations. The other day I was in eastern Ohio and doing a bus trip for Hillary, and an African-American bishop came up to me, and I was just virtually in tears. He told me who he was, and he said, but that's not what's important, Mr. President. He said, what's important to me is that I am the grandson of Luther Black of Hope, Arkansas, where I was born, and where the first business I was ever inside on a daily basis was my granddad's little grocery store, across the street from the town cemetery, behind which lived most of the African Americans. So most of my granddad's customers were African American. His position was straightforward. If you're working hard and you're doing the best you can and you're taking care of your kids, you got a right to feed them. Keep in mind, this is a long time ago. There were no food stamps. There was no income supplement, no nothing. And he said, my grandfather told me that your grandfather was a wonderful man because whenever he came in and he hadn't been paid yet, and he didn't always get paid on a regular basis, he said, Luther, just take whatever you need for your family and come back and pay me when you can. We got to get that back in America. When somebody looks you in the eye, you got to be able to trust them again. You have to be able to believe them again. We have to say, look, we don't care what your religion or anything else is. This tirade against that Gold Star family because the Muslim mother couldn't talk at the Democratic convention after that young man laid down his life for this country was a disgrace. Let me tell you something. If it had been my child, I couldn't have talked at the convention. Could you? I couldn't believe the father could do it. We got to stop this. This is bad for us. And it's dumb. Do you want to prevent these episodic instances of terror like at San Bernardino? Or what about Orlando, where the guy wasn't in touch with anybody? He just said, I was sort of inspired by all this killing. Would you like to support the people around the world who agree with us, who hate what ISIS is doing, and help them roll back the tide without involving our soldiers? If that's what you want, we have got to have the help of American Muslims who love freedom and despise terror and believe in this country's promise. So, now look, this has been kind of a heavy election. So the other day, I called a buddy of mine we've been friends for more than 40 years. And he's the best one-line guy I ever heard. He can come up with one line for anything. So I called him and I said, You know, I need to lighten this up. Just give me a good one-liner. And I mean, he didn't miss a beat. He said, if you don't want a guy to drive the truck off the cliff, don't give him the keys. So here's what I want to say to you. I want you to give her the keys. Because if you give her the keys, she will open up the back of the truck and put every American on board, no matter who they voted for. She'll go to Appalachia and get those coal miners a new future and their children a brighter tomorrow. She will go everywhere and she'll take us all along. She'll drive that truck to the top of a new mountain and we will love where we come out. Thank you and God bless you.